All right, guys. Well, welcome back. I'm Cody. I'm joined by my brothers Rico and Eric. And today we are going to dive more into, originally I said chapter one, but this is still the prologue, isn't it? So it's funny how Campbell kind of laid this out. But yeah, we're diving deeper into Joseph Campbell, the hero with 1,000 faces. Today, we're just on page 5, I think, for most of you guys. So yeah, I mean, did you before we get into the reading, do you guys have any reflections or any thoughts? Since our first dip into this material the other day.
No, I think we hit pretty good on quite a few different topics on the first couple of pages to begin with.
Yeah, went deep right away, huh?
Still trying to process it a little bit. To be honest.
Say again.
I said I'm still trying to process it a little bit, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, okay. So why don't we go ahead and jump right back in? Yeah. So if you guys had seen the first video, I think this. I'm just going to call it a chapter, even though it's not officially chapter 1, but the first chapter here is Myth and Dream. And we're just we've already made it through the first few pages, but Campbell walks through, I think we've seen 2 dream readings essentially so far. And we left off last time really discussing that concept of like we kind of do carry around this mythology within us, in a sense, in our subconscious or unconscious. The last let's see. Yeah, the last sentence I think we left off with on a prior video was destruction of the world that we have built and in which we live. And he's talking about kind of what the danger is of delving into the unconscious. It entails the destruction of the world that we've built and in which we live and of ourselves within it. But then a wonderful reconstruction of a bolder, cleaner, more spacious and fully human life. That is the lure, the promise, and the terror of these disturbing night visitants from the mythological realm that we carry within. Yeah, and I mean that's a hell of a sentence just in itself. But let's go deeper. So, picking up there where we left off, Joseph Campbell. These are his words. Okay, psychoanalysis, the modern science of reading dreams, has taught us to take heed of these unsubstantial images. Also, it has found a way to let them do their work. The dangerous crises of self-development are permitted to come to pass under the protecting eye of an experienced initiate in the lore and language of dreams, who then enacts the role and character of the ancient mystagogue, or the guide of souls, the initiating medicine man of the primitive forest sanctuaries of trial and initiation. The doctor is the modern master of the mythological realm, the knower of all the secret ways and words of potency. His role is precisely that of the wise old man of the myths and fairy tales whose words assist the hero through the trials and terrors of the weird adventure. So yeah, he's kind of drawing a parallel here to the psychoanalyst, right? Helping people work out their psychology, or the doctor, right? Even who prescribes, cures for whatever ails you. He is the one, actually really quick, let me see if I can, I did try to pull up a couple images, because yeah, you guys let me know if your copy has the same so for me I've got figure 1, Selene and the Maenads. You guys have that as well on that page? This is not, I did my best to look up, try to find the same plates they call it, but anyhow, essentially a depiction like this. And I'm actually not that familiar with that story, but I won't go on the side tangent right now. But I just thought it's interesting these looks like some virgins being carried off by some mythological dream creatures or old men in the night, something like that. Selene and the Maenads is on that page to kind of accompany this paragraph. So, anyways, okay. So the his talking about the Doctor, the modern master of the mythological realm. His role is precisely that of the wise old man of the myths and fairy tales whose words assist the hero through the trials and terrors of the weird adventure. He is the one who appears and points to the magic shining sword that will kill the dragon terror. Tells of the waiting bride and the castle of many treasures, applies healing balm to the almost fatal wounds, and finally dismisses the conqueror back into the world of normal life, following the great adventure into the enchanted night. So yeah, mythologically, he's just speaking about, I guess, a mentor, right? Someone who's been to that unknown world and who's already mastered it. So a helper or ally on the journey. But this, I think, in terms of dreams. When we turn now with this image in mind to consider the numerous strange rituals that have been reported from the primitive tribes and great civilizations of the past, it becomes apparent that the purpose and actual effect of these was to conduct people across those difficult thresholds of transformation that demand a change in the patterns not only of consciousness, but also of unconscious life. The so-called rites of passage, which occupy such a prominent place in the life of a primitive society, ceremonials of birth, naming, puberty, marriage, burial, etc., are distinguished by formal and usually very severe exercises of severance, whereby the mind is radically cut away from the attitudes, attachments, and life patterns of the stage being left behind. Then follows an interval of more or less extended retirement, during which are enacted rituals designed to introduce the life adventurer to the forms and proper feelings of his new estate, so that when at last the time has ripened for the return to the normal world, the initiate will be as good as reborn. Thoughts on that? What do you guys think? So he's really, pointing out the hero's adventure, the hero's journey, particularly is a really valuable tool for life's transition periods, especially in your growth and maturation. He's touching on, kind of and we still have these, right? The rituals of birth.
I was thinking, like, for
marriage.
me, when I turned 16, getting my license, that's a rite of passage for
Right.
me. You know what I mean? Like when I read that, that's what came to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're growing up, we don't live in a primitive culture or anything like that. But to me, like a rite of passage for me was getting my license when I was 16. That was everything. It's like, okay, now you're somebody, or you're a man, or whatever we want to call it, right?
Well, you certainly have like this whole new level of freedom.
It was pretty life changing, right, at the time.
Right.
You can drive. You're out of the house. You're away from your mom, your family. It gives you a sense of a little bit of a freedom. You're moving up, and you're moving on, and you're growing up, kind of thing. That's that was the first thing that came to mind when I read that. So, like for me anyway. It was a big deal.
And it is a journey, right? You go off and you journey.
Yeah, exactly. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It's the first part of your, becoming, an adult, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a whole new, independence at least. And
exactly.
I guess, you'll need some sort of mentor, as you're learning to operate a car for the first time, right?
Yeah.
I know that one thing that could go with that as well is your first time you travel, or places you've traveled, different cultures, different experiences. Philippines had a lot of poverty, a lot of different things that you experience there, versus here in the U.S. you don't see a whole lot of just that whole different aspect of life, and kind of getting a new perspective on life in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that makes me think of my first big trip abroad. You know, the first country I went to outside the U.S. was France when I was 17, and you know, I went on at first I did about a week just staying with a French family, and going to a French school, and so like yeah, that was quite an epic adventure. You know, really feeling like way out in a whole new a culture, right? And on my own, like far away from home. So if I messed up, you know, no one was coming to save me. Um, but yeah, like yeah, I also, you know, we met up again with my French professor and classmates and stuff, and yeah, it was just a really interesting educational experience with my mentor, Alec Hodgins. Actually, he was one of my closest two teachers growing up, and yeah, really inspired my passion for travel and all that comes along with it. But yeah, this is why I've said in the past, like I believe the hero's journey, that framework is such a invaluable tool for when you're learning. You know, yeah, when you're endeavoring to learn something really significant. You know, going out, yeah, whether it's the first time you're experiencing independence from your family, whether you're learning to drive a car, which could definitely be a dangerous weapon if you don't know what you're doing, or you know, going to an unknown world, right? Like somewhere where they speak a different language and the culture's radically different, that sort of thing. I mean, yeah, this framework of the hero's journey, I think, can be applied in all those cases as a learning and growth tool, right? It's a map for that path of achieving something new, learning new skills, if that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, one quick side note for everybody, you know, this book is just loaded with footnotes, right? Like Rico, I know you've made significant progress through this book. I don't know how much of the footnotes you've read though. Like one thing, when I read it for myself, I do often I'll jump down and read the footnotes. I need to, since I'm towards the end of the book on my own right now. I need to go back and I'll try to take note of which footnotes are worth doing an aside for, but I also don't want to get too sidetracked. But I'll just check them quickly here and there and share when it's appropriate. But anyhow, let's push forward. Most amazing is the fact that a great number of the ritual trials and images correspond to those that appear automatically in dream the moment the psychoanalyzed patient begins to abandon his infantile fixations and to progress into the future. Among the Aborigines in Australia, for example, one of the principal features of the ordeal of initiation, by which the boy at puberty is cut away from the mother and inducted into the society and secret lore of the men, is the... So that was a little paragraph, or a little parenthetical, excuse me. Yeah, one of the principal features of the ordeal of initiation is the rite of circumcision. And actually, you know, a lot of us have that in Western culture still. So I think he's quoting here from Geza Rohim, the Eternal Ones of the Dream. When a little boy of the Merngan tribe is about to be circumcised, he is told by his fathers and by the old men, "The great father snake smells your foreskin. He's calling for it." The boys believe this to be literally true and become extremely frightened. Usually they take refuge with their mother's mother, or some other favorite female relative, for they know that the men are organized to see that they are taken to the men's ground, where the great snake is bellowing. The women wail over the boys ceremonially. This is to keep the great snake from swallowing them. Now regard the counterpart from the unconscious. One of my patients, writes Dr. C.G. Jung, Carl Jung, one of my patients dreamt that a snake shot out of a cave and bit him in the genital region. This dream occurred at the moment when the patient was convinced of the truth of the analysis and was beginning to free himself from the bonds of his mother complex. It's from Jung's Symbols of Transformation. So, you know, that kind of, some of this stuff, it's easy for me to like smirk, you know, be a little immature about it, especially when we're talking about getting bit in the genitals. But, but you know, I don't know about you guys. Yeah, when I started learning about more ancient rites of passage, as you say, Rico, it's I think, you know, we'll probably get more into it here as we progress, but especially like he's talking about this Aborigine tribe. Often when the boys get to about age 7, is what I've heard frequently, you know, yeah, the men of the tribe will steal away the boys at age 7 from what we talked about last time, right? Like all children really grow up almost inseparable, like almost initially feeling like they're one with mother, right? And even in my house today, you know, it's mama and grandma just doting over the children, usually taking care, and the men are off hunting and, you know, providing, right, in one way or another. But yeah, in tribal cultures, often I think even to this day, often around 7 years old is when they pluck the boys away from the mother, from the women, you know, and often, yeah, put them through, you know, what we would in the West maybe, you know, often think of as quite a severe initiation experience, you know, like at least terror, and often kind of being challenged, like to a fight almost, but a play fight, but something that, yeah, initiates them into, as he says, the where was that? Anyway, it initiates them kind of into the men's mythology, I suppose. And it serves as like, yeah, a transition point. You know, you're no longer a boy. You know, now you're a young man. What do you guys think on that? If you have any thoughts, I'll push forward. It's always been the prime function of mythology and rite to supply the symbols that carry the human spirit forward, in counteraction to those other constant human fantasies that tend to tie it back. In fact, it may well be that the very high incidence of neuroticism among ourselves follows from the decline among us of such effective spiritual aid. You know, that's an interesting point, right? Yeah, we don't have well-developed rites of passage like this so much anymore until, yeah, maybe older. It's like, yeah, they start maybe 16, 18, 21, and those aren't necessarily the most well-developed, you know, transitional rites. They're like, yeah, you can drive, or you can go to war, or you can get drunk. You know, there's not much mythology around it anymore. But so maybe that contributes to our high level of mental health issues, I guess, in the modern world.
I was going to say, Cody, like what he says here, you know, it's like the symbolic cutting away from the mother, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I kind of get out of that, you know, and that's prevalent in a lot of, you know, primitive, even nowadays, you know, I shouldn't say primitive tribes, but I know that still happens in, I think, Papua in Indonesia. I heard that was happening still with the local.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. It's symbolic.
I mean, it's fascinating, right? I mean, there are still tribal cultures all around us, you know. You rarely see them because they're not part of society, quote unquote, right? Like they have their own little society. They're doing things their way. But I mean, yeah, it's pretty interesting how a lot of these things that trace back thousands of years, you know, that people like Campbell study like via history, but there are still many tribes around the world that have a lot of similar patterns. I mean, yeah, I've not encountered them, but I've even heard of, you know, like a tribal group here on our island that kind of follows some of these older, more traditional patterns. Hang on just a sec here.
Around Bohol?
Yeah, up in the mountains apparently. So, yeah, I think on one of our past calls we were talking about how, the world's gone crazy. Like, can't we just go off into the wilderness and do our own thing? And I was kind of half joking, but thinking about that, like, I just want to go join the tribe in the jungle. I mean, they don't have the conveniences of modern life, quote unquote, for sure. But I think they do have a lot of things right in some ways, right? So let me see, where was I here? Okay, so yeah, we remain fixated to the unexercised images of our infancy. And unexercised, I think, means like an exorcism, like we have these, like we're almost possessed, right, by our own images of infancy or the concepts we develop as children. So I think that's why it's like, you have to have those cutting off experiences to exercise the immature, the infantile ideas about the world, the ways of relating to the world. So yeah, we remain fixated to the unexercised images of our infancy, and hence disinclined to the necessary passages of our adulthood. In the United States, there is even a pathos of inverted emphasis. The goal is not to grow old, but to remain young. That's an interesting point, yeah. Not to mature away from mother, but to cleave to her. I mean, like how many, in California, man, how many folks are walking around with Botox in their face, It's true, like our culture has made it's not fashionable to age anymore,
But anti-wrinkle creams and
yeah.
It's like everything's reversed from every other part of the world. Like in Asia, the older people are revered, right?
Yeah.
Especially in Thailand and in Indo. Even when I travel there, they call me Om, which is uncle. Like, and that was from Cindy's relatives, the younger. And here it's it's almost like a fakeness, a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there are still some who age gracefully and flaunt it almost, like they're not ashamed. But yeah, by and large in the West, it's like everyone's trying to look as young as they possibly can, and often to act as young as they can as well. Not to mature. So, okay. And so while husbands are worshiping at their boyhood shrines, being the lawyers, merchants, or masterminds their parents wanted them to be, their wives, even after 14 years of marriage and 2 fine children produced and raised, are still on the search for love, which can come to them only from the centaurs, Sileni, satyrs, and other concupiscent incubi. I don't know what that means. Concupiscent. Anyone ever heard of that word? Concupiscent. I'm gonna have to look it up. But incubi of the route of Pan. So I think incubi is like those, like a succubi, right? An incubus and a succubus. Those are figures of the dream.
demons.
Yeah, the concupiscent. Oh, filled with sexual desire, lustful. There you go.
That's why they're never satisfied.
Yeah, exactly. Well, right. they're yes. I mean, the word succubus is one is male and one is female, right? I think the succubus is female.
Isn't the centaur?
Yeah, succubus is female. Incubus is male, I believe.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, yeah, it's like it sucks your energy almost. Like it thrives on your lust or your I guess it's I've never seen that in my dreams or anything, but it's often referenced as I guess it would come in those sexual type dreams or whatever. But he's talking about the wives of modern men, like, yeah, who they're still on this search for love, which can come to them only from the centaurs, Sileni, satyrs, and other concupiscent, is that what she said? Incubi of the rout of Pan. And you guys know Pan, right? Like the little goat-legged man in the forest with his flute. Either as in the second of the above recited dreams, or as in our popular vanilla-frosted temples of the venereal goddess, under the makeup of the latest heroes of the screen. The psychoanalyst has to come along at last to assert again the tried wisdom of the older, forward-looking teachings of the masked medicine dancers and the witch doctor circumcisers, whereupon we find, as in the dream of the serpent bite, that the ageless initiation symbolism is produced spontaneously by the patient himself at the moment of the release. So yeah, it's interesting. It's like those archetypes, they're not only like in the collective, kind of unconscious, but they are in us too, That's often your dreams. Yeah, you have these symbols appear and you may not understand the symbolism, but they do have kind of a deep relation to God knows what, like our ancestral history or something, right? Apparently, there is something in these initiatory images so necessary to the psyche that if they are not supplied from without, as in outside, through myth and ritual, they will have to be announced again through dream from within, lest our energies should remain locked in a banal, long outmoded toy room at the bottom of the sea. Thoughts? What do you guys think? Did you have something there a minute ago, Rico, you wanted to say?
No, I was just saying about the centaurs. I think that's the male succubus or whatever you want, like the male energy. I think that's what, from what I remember reading. And the succubus is up the woman looks like a snake, like a demon almost. And yeah, that's all I was trying to say, Cody. Because I remember reading. I can't remember where I read that. I remember reading that somewhere though.
Well, yeah, as we get further into this chapter, yeah, this is where he really focuses on the story of the centaur, which is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I think that was the woman's dream, with the masculine sexual energy. I think that's what he was getting at, I guess. That's all I was going to say.
Cool. Okay, so next paragraph. Sigmund Freud stresses in his writings the passages and difficulties of the first half of the human cycle of life, those of our infancy and adolescence, when our sun, like the one in the sky, is mounting towards its zenith. C.G. Jung, on the other hand, has emphasized the crises of the second portion of life, when, in order to advance, the shining sphere must submit to descend and disappear. So I guess he's using the sun as a metaphor, right? Like, yeah, you're of your life. Like you're born, that's like sunrise, and it's rising. That's your adolescence, and then it reaches the center point in the sky, and then it begins to fall. That's your older years, I guess. And I think that's the part most of us probably have the hardest time with these days, right? Is the what do you call that? It's like we call it seniors and elderly people, but your latter years, right? And then eventually the sun sets. Yeah.
The downhill slide.
But isn't it interesting? Like, I don't know about you guys. Like, I'm just thinking about, like, I love how he uses that metaphor of the sun. Like, my favorite, I've been trying to get up early morning with the sun a lot more in the last 2 years or so. But I love a good sunset. Like, isn't sunset the most beautiful part, of the sun's cycle on a daily basis? Like, how many just gorgeous sunsets have you seen? Yeah,
gives me the most energy. Like, you just feel something. It's
The sunsets here where I'm at aren't near as beautiful as those in the Philippines.
Well, true. Yeah, I didn't want to brag, but I should have queued up a photo or a couple. But I mean, you know, yeah, it depends where you are, and especially with. I mean, I'm feeling sympathy for my family and friends in California right now and elsewhere, because you know, yeah, like if you got fires like they do right now. I mean, even on a good day, some places your visibility is just not very good. But we all love a good sunset, right? And it makes me think. I feel like older societies, through their mythology, their traditions, and their rites of passage, like it's like they allowed their elders to like to go out with a bang in a sense, you know, like as a beautiful sunset, you know, yeah, more revered, like you say, Rico, more at peace as well, just with that's, you know, that's how it is. I mean, that's been, I don't know, I think because I experienced losing a few friends at a very young age, and I kind of went to a weird dark place, but I came to terms with that maybe more than your average person. And you know, that's a big element of my whole life philosophy. Is like, it is what it is. We're not here forever. You know, you got to accept that. And it kind of makes, you know, you realize you don't have as much time as you might like, but it makes it more beautiful because it's more valuable. You know, you really got to get everything out of it that you can, make it all it can be.
I kind of feel like your older people, you know, on those on the downhill slide are able to fully, I guess, appreciate the beauty of like the sunsets and everything like that, because they don't have. I mean, here, younger, you got so many distractions, so many, I guess, thoughts running through our minds constantly, and I guess it takes a while to get through all that noise to be able to truly experience something for what it is.
Yeah. I mean, and kind of going on a side tangent, but I think I posted something a little while ago about how, you know, the elderly often have just such a almost miraculous connection with young kids or newborns. You know, I shared a meme recently, and it, you know, was saying how, like, yeah, from that more tribal perspective, it's like the elderly know that they're going to that same place where the infant just came from, you know, the great
cosmos,
beyond,
or something like that,
or whatever.
That's where they stay with them for like 2 years of life, the first 2 years of life, or something like that, right?
Yeah. And I thought that's beautiful. And yeah, like you say, it's like, yeah, I mean, I think a well-adjusted, a healthy person who's towards those sunset years of their life, yeah, like they tend to appreciate the beauty in a lot of things that the rest of us are just too distracted to see often, like you say, right? But yeah, I think I do feel like that's a big element that we're missing in modern society. Is like the reverence for how life itself unfolds. Like, you know, everyone talks today like we want to beat death somehow, which I still, honestly, guys, I don't think we're ever gonna do it. Sorry to burst your bubble, but I don't think we're ever gonna do it.
We're not meant to do it.
Right.
We're not meant to do it. Like, we're all, you know, if you believe in reincarnation or anything, it's just, you're just reborn into, again, you know.
I mean, yeah, who knows for sure what comes after, you know? I mean, but that's part, like, for me, I'm fascinated. I can't wait to, I mean, you know, maybe nothing. Maybe it just fades to black and there's absolutely nothing, you know? All right, fair enough. But I think I have a feeling, yeah, it's much more profound than that. And but I think it's interesting how, yeah, most modern civilized people are terrified of death, you know, like, oh no, I don't want that. I mean, I'm not asking for it anytime soon, but I think, yeah, like these older cultures were so much more well adjusted, and they just accepted the truth, which is like, you're not going to be here forever, you know. And maybe that last goodbye, you know, it's a doorway to something. So we all have to go through it eventually.
My grandparents, before they died, I know my papa, he would always go talk to my mama, and he like, hey, let's go pick out our headstones, right? He's always like already preparing for it and ready for it, and she would constantly refuse. No, we can't go. And and I mean, to me, it's a, without knowing what it is, it's kind of a fearful thing, but it's nothing we can do to stop it.
Right. Yeah, it's inevitable, right?
Not gonna lie, I was thinking about this today. You know, I'm 49, turning 50 in October. You know, I do think about it now. Like, I don't know. I'm not scared, but it's like, have I lived my life the way I wanted to live? Like, I had kind of not a breakdown, I guess, but just kind of really thinking about things, and with Corona, you know, like, it's like, when have I lived, you know, have I done everything I wanted to do? You know, like I said, I'm only 50, you know, that's not that old, but, you know, you kind of think, you know, I'm halfway there, not even I'm more than halfway there now. You know, you do think about it. You do think about it. And I'm not scared, but it's just like, I'm scared that I haven't done the things I wanted to do. You know?
Right. Well, and that's a healthy fear, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
I think that's why it's like, if you accept your own mortality, then it puts the fear of, I would say, the fear of God in a sense, but like, the fear of like, I got to do this all in, right?
And maybe just because we started reading it, I've been thinking about it in the back of my mind, but I haven't really sat down, you know, like today, I kind of sat down and just by myself and kind of went, you know, maybe just doing what we're doing here is just kind of triggered something a little bit. So yeah, it's like when I read this, it's like, there's nothing to be scared of, but you can't help but be scared a little bit. So, because maybe that's just conditioned.
Well, yeah, I think
conditioning, you know, if I lived in Borneo or wherever, you know, I wouldn't be thinking these kind of thoughts. But just because we're here, you know, you think you're going to live forever, and you don't. You know, I don't know. Like I said, it's kind of, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. It's kind of like it's out in front a little bit now. Things I want to do and the goals I have. So, and I talked to Cindy about it, and she's kind of in the same position. You know, we're both she's turning 49 and I'm turning 50. So we're not kids anymore. So if we're going to do what we're going to do, we do it, kind of thing. So, but I feel good. You know, I look after myself and everything else, but you know, it is kind of there. It is there, definitely. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's you're in great shape, I think, for your age, buddy. But but like you say, you know, so use that you know, I guess there is going to be some fear attached to it. That's normal, right? The whole range of emotions, like coming to terms with our mortality. But yeah, try to harness it and channel it into, you know, live while you're alive, right? Live as fully as you can while you're here and appreciate it. I think that's what a lot of us are missing in the modern world. It's like we put off that idea entirely. We deny our mortality, and we stay so busy, and many people don't think about it until, you know, I mean, a lot of folks in my family like work till they're in their 60s or 70s, and then they finally retire, and then they finally sit back and think what you're thinking already, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, I think a lot of people put it off too late, and then what can you do? You know, you're in your 70s and you want to go run around, do all the things you never did. It gets harder, right? In your 70s, your 80s. But
I think we're conditioned, though. Like, part of me thinks we're conditioned to do this.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, like with Corona here, and keep going back to that. It's like, you know, we weren't thankful for what we had, and now we can't travel. We can't go out. You know, in Australia, they're on lockdown. It's like the things that we took for granted, you know, now you can't do. So everybody's in a big, what's going on, right? And it's like, even with your life, you know, what you've done, you know, you've taken time for granted, and you shouldn't. You know, time's your most precious asset. You know, and that's kind of where I was at today. It's like, yeah, you've done a lot of stuff in your life, but have you done everything you wanted to do? You know, and it's kind of weighing on you a little bit. So,
well, yeah, I think we've touched on it many times, but I think I guess that's why I think the this crisis, you know, the pandemic and all of it, while it is frustrating for us in many ways, especially the restriction on what we can do, and like you say, yeah, it's taken away a lot of things we took for granted, which it's painful, but it's also it's like it's challenging us to appreciate those things more and to reevaluate what really matters to us, and I think it's a lot of people don't want to, but it's like forcing almost everyone to look at the reality of death, I guess, the reality of our mortality. And you have almost these two camps forming in a sense. It's like, people who are just terrified and they're just not ready to deal with that, you know, and they're going to do whatever they can to surround themselves in plastic bubble wrap. And and then there's the other folks who I think the more, I'm not trying to make a value judgment, because it's like both are normal and you have to go through the first one before you get to the last one. But I think a lot of people are finally coming to terms with it. You know, it's like, well, disease exists, you know, we're all gonna die, and so let's live while we're alive. You know, let's really go all out with it. So I see that overall as a great, an uncomfortable but a really good push. It's like we're baby chicks in the nest and mama bird is pushing us out, and it's like, holy shit, you know, the terror of all these things going on around us, and like people are dying, but it's also like that's how we will learn to fly, you know.
What is it they say? None of us will leave this life alive.
Yeah. It's terminal, dude. Yeah.
I think a lot of people aren't in reality either. You know, they just think, like Eric said, you know, you don't think you're ever going to die. Like, that's not realistic. You know, I could drive when I go to work tomorrow. I could get in a car accident. And that's it.
Right.
You don't know. So, you know, or I could find out I got cancer or whatever. You know, like, it's like people just don't want to accept that reality. You know, and it is reality. So.
Okay, well, let me see. Okay, so Carl Jung, on the other hand, has emphasized the crises of the second portion of life, as we're talking about, when, in order to advance, the shining sphere, the sun, must submit to descend and disappear at last into the night womb of the grave. I love how he phrases that. You know, he's talking about a sunset as a metaphor, but the night womb of the grave. The normal symbols of our desires and fears become converted, and this afternoon of the biography, into their opposites. For it is then no longer life but death that is the challenge, like we're talking about. What is difficult to leave then is not the womb, like in your infancy and your adolescence, but the phallus. Unless indeed the life weariness has already seized the heart, when it will be death that calls with the promise of bliss that formerly was the lure of love. That's interesting too. I guess for those who are just weary of life and ready to go. Some people are, right, by the end. Full circle from the tomb of the womb to the womb of the tomb. Full circle we come, an ambiguous, enigmatical incursion into a world of solid matter that is soon to melt from us, like the substance of a dream. That's deep, huh? Are you guys following this? Is that...
Yeah.
Can you kind of decode that, what he's saying?
Yeah, I'm kind of struggling here, but I'm working on it.
You know, I mean, again, I think it's good to kind of keep that the metaphor of the sun in mind, you know, because you're the womb, or sorry, he begins with the tomb of the womb, like in a sense. I mean, you're who knows where like, God, I don't know about you guys, but when I think about it, like my wife is pregnant, and it's like, I mean, I understand the science, but like, really, where the hell does that come from? You know, women are like, they're portals. You know, they're like a Stargate for new lives to come from some other dimension almost into this world that we inhabit. This solid matter world that we're experiencing right now, you know. And it's like, anyway, so, but in a sense, it's like that's its own tomb, you know, like you're buried in your mother, and then you develop, and then you fight your way out of that womb into this, like, that's like we said last time, that's kind of our first hero's journey, is the battle to be born, you know, and
life, yeah.
You know, come into this whole new world, and you go from like a water creature to you got to start breathing air. But anyhow, you know, yeah, to follow that metaphor of the sun, you know, from the tomb of the womb, you know, all the way to the womb of the tomb. Like kind of like I was saying, I mean, a lot of the religions see death as a portal or a doorway to something that can't be described, you know. I mean, it's like the Matrix, right? You have to see it with your own eyes. You know, even if someone has a near-death experience and comes back and tries to explain it, like you'll never really know what the hell they're talking about, and it's a big mystery. But the religion, that's how they paint it, you know. It's like, yeah, it's a passageway to the great beyond, and whatever that is, it's not what we have here, something else. But it, you know, it's a womb of the tomb also. Like maybe there's something after, you know. Maybe we're passing on to some other form, or like you said, a reincarnation of some kind, or an afterlife. Who knows? Yeah, an ambiguous, enigmatical incursion into a world of solid, you know. So like I'm saying, ambiguous. It's like, yeah, no one knows where we really come from. Like, where does the consciousness come from? You know, where does the personality come from? I'm watching my son. You know, the first couple of years, they're just a little ragdoll mostly, and all they care about is drinking milk and whatever and making poo-poos. But then one day, it's something switches on, and like, you know, my son has really hit that point where, like, he's got this personality. He's got a lot of me. He's got a lot of his mom in him, but he's his own being too, you know. And it's like, where did that come from? I don't know. You know, there's this driving energy, this force in all of us, and it comes out of the ether, you know, and then it's like distilled into us. Like, we're not just our bodies. Like, I don't believe we are. Like, you know, as much as the world wants to tell us that these days, you know, there's more to it than just the solid matter. You know, science still can't explain consciousness, where it is, where it comes from. But yeah, we're having a solid matter experience, right, while we're here. Yeah, that is soon to melt away from us, like the substance of a dream. You know, it's like, yeah, we have a while here, and then eventually our bodies, everything disintegrates and falls away eventually, right?
It's like Cindy says, we're spiritual beings in a meat suit.
Yeah, right? That's kind of how I feel.
You know, like,
about it.
You know, and I personally think, you know, I don't know about reincarnation, but it's like, you know, when you see certain things, like, to me, I've always been, ever since I was a kid, I was drawn to Japan. You know, part of me thinks maybe I was in another, you know, time I was there in some capacity, you know. Even like Asia, I've been really drawn ever since I was a kid, you know, that sort of thing. You know, I think if you believe in reincarnation, it's like you've lived. So maybe, you know, you speak of consciousness. It's like, okay, well, you're just coming back to learn something else, you know, that you need to learn or whatever, you know, that sort of thing. That's why I kind of look at things, because like you said, is this certain things, you know, you can see certain things on TV, or, you know, this triggers, okay, yeah, I kind of resonates with you, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of thing. So,
yeah, I spent a couple of years really delving into reading about, learning about Buddhism, especially, but also Hinduism. And yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would say I 100% embrace it or believe it per se, but I really do appreciate that concept of like reincarnation, at least as a metaphor, and I mean, I think, yeah, in some sense, there's certainly some truth there. I was just, a thought came to mind, like even you could even kind of paint the same picture a little more concretely with like modern day science is saying, what do they call it? Epigenetics. Like even if you think of like your ancestors, like epigenetics says that like things I learned before I conceived with my wife, with our children, can actually be passed down in the DNA. And if you really flesh out that concept, I mean, it means like, yeah, you have certain memories almost of all your ancestors.
It's like built into like
built into you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who knows? Yeah, you could be right. Maybe a couple generations back, that one of your great grandfathers or something went off to Japan or was Japanese. Who knows, right?
Like I've always been, even when I was a kid, I saw samurais and stuff. Even when I was like really little, I remember, I want Japanese food. I want, it kind of really resonates. I just, it's from a memory. I just, even now, I've been there once, but I'd love to go back and just, I went in a high school, like a Twin City kind of thing, right? So we went over there and it was awesome. I really resonate with that country, but like I said, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, it's fascinating to think about.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, in one way or another, we certainly have a lot of programming in us, that comes from a very, very deep history, that goes back longer than we can imagine.
It's like
I think.
If you look at Mozart and, these guys, like, where did that come from? Leonardo da Vinci, like, it's like they were aliens almost, it was, even today, you look at that and you're like, how could they, come up with that? It actually it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Not to go too far off topic, but so going back when the pyramids were built, there's theories on that where humans couldn't build something so precise and perfect as a pyramid.
Well, yeah, we still don't know today how they did that. Yeah.
The mathematics involved in that, it's beyond, and when was that? 5,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, or whatever it was. Like, it's absolutely mind-boggling.
The common history, they've long said about 5,000, but more and more people are starting to say it might be like 12,000 years old. At least.
They still, like, every time it's like it gets older and older, and it's, I don't know. There's something there in us. You can get into conspiracy stuff, you can do whatever, but there is something there that makes us, evolves our species, I guess, if that's what you want to kind of say. And it's going to be interesting in the next couple of years, but this AI and everything else, which I don't agree with, but what's going to happen with humans as a species,
Yeah, it feels like we're at in one way or another, a turning point.
That's what I feel, and I that's why I get so stressed out about this, because I can kind of, I'm just a blue collar kind of person, but it's like you can kind of see things, the way things are going. It's kind of pretty scary.
Mm. So, all right, well, yeah. Before we get too far off track, let me see. I think we are gonna get into this sort of territory, but. Okay, so talking about Carl Jung, what is difficult to leave then, in this second phase of life? It's not the womb, but the phallus. So we're going to have to keep reading to find out what he means by that. Unless, indeed, the life weariness has already seized the heart, when it will be death that calls with the promise of bliss that formerly was the lure of love. So like in that first first half of life, yeah, you're like passionate. You're out there trying to conquer and like find a partner, a mate, you know, or you're possessed by that lust for life, I guess. And maybe in the second half, it's more learning to conquer the fear of death and how to end your cycle, you know, gracefully and make the most of it and leave something behind, hopefully. Full circle, from the tomb of the womb to the womb of the tomb we come, an ambiguous, enigmatical incursion into a world of solid matter that is soon to melt from us like the substance of a dream. All right. So, back on track here. And looking back at what we had promised to be our own unique, unpredictable, and dangerous adventure, all we find in the end is such a series of standard metamorphoses as men and women have undergone in every quarter of the world in all recorded centuries and under every odd disguise of civilization. So it's like, yeah, we have our own unique version of this journey through life, but, you know, we're passing through the same stages of development, and in many ways the same rites of passage as every human being who's ever lived, right? Everyone is born and matures and eventually withers and dies, you know. So it comes in a billion different flavors. That's why, by the way, that's why it's the hero with 1,000 faces, you know. It's like we wear different masks, we have different personalities, we're playing different parts, but we're all kind of on a very similar journey. The story is told, for example, of the great Minos. Okay, so here we'll start to dip into the Minotaur. But the great Minos, king of the island empire of Crete, which I believe that's in the Mediterranean Ocean, right? In the period of its commercial supremacy, how he hired the celebrated artist craftsman, I think it's how do you pronounce that again? Daedalus. He hired the celebrated artist craftsman Daedalus to invent and construct for him a labyrinth, you know, like an elaborate maze, in which to hide something of which the palace was at once ashamed and afraid. For there was a monster on the premises, which had been born to pacify. I'm gonna have a lot of pronunciation challenges with the old Greek words and things, but so a monster born to pacify the queen, his queen. Yeah, this is where we get into that story, Rico, and it's juicy. Minos, the king, that's Minos for anyone listening in later. Minos, the king, had been busy, it is said, with important wars to protect the trade routes. And meanwhile, Pasiphae had been seduced by a magnificent snow-white sea-born bull. It had been nothing worse, really, than what Minos' own mother had allowed to happen. Minos' mother was Europa, and it is well known that she was carried by a bull to Crete. The bull had been the god Zeus, and the honored son of that sacred union was Minos himself, now everywhere respected and gladly served. How then could Pasiphae have known that the fruit of her own indiscretion would be a monster, this little son with human body but the head and tail of a bull? So King Minos is off fighting the war, securing the trade routes. Meanwhile, his darling wife, Pasiphae, I think that's how you pronounce it, which is an interesting word. Sounds like, you know, pacification almost. But she's having a little side, an adulterous relationship with, you know, some sacred bull, I guess. And he, you know, the king himself was the product of a coming together, we'll say, of Zeus, the god Zeus, in bull form with his mother. So Society has blamed the queen greatly, but the king was not unconscious of his own share of the guilt. The bull in question had been sent by the god Poseidon long ago when Minos was contending with his brothers for the throne. Minos had asserted that the throne was his by divine right, and he had prayed to the god Poseidon to send up a bull out of the sea as a sign. So he summoned the thing. And he had sealed the prayer with a vow to sacrifice the animal immediately as an offering and symbol of service. The bull had appeared, and Minos took the throne. But when he beheld the majesty of the beast that had been sent and thought what an advantage it would be to possess such a specimen, he determined to risk a merchant's substitution. Merchant's substitution. He determined to risk a merchant's substitution. What's that? Substitution? There's a word I don't know too.
It says substitution here.
Does it? Yeah, I think maybe there's a printing error on mine. Sub dash next line tuition. Yeah, I wanted to. Okay.
Yeah, substitution, Cody, and mine too.
I thought substitution was the right word there. That's weird. Okay. So, anyways, yeah, he was like, he promised. He said, "Send me a sign, Poseidon," and he does. Out the ocean spits out a bull. And it's like, okay, wow, that's miraculous. We got our sign, I guess. But then he didn't do what he promised to do, which was to sacrifice it, right? To the gods. And so, yeah. So he determined to risk a merchant's substitution, I guess. That makes a lot more sense. Of which he supposed the god would take no great account. Offering on Poseidon's altar the finest white bull that he owned, he added the other to his herd. So he kept what I believe, well, I guess no, the Minotaur was what his queen gave birth to, but he kept this sea bull. The Cretan Empire had greatly prospered under the sensible jurisdiction of this celebrated lawgiver and model of public virtue. Knossos, 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 which I think relates to the Greek word for wisdom, but anyways, Knossos, the capital city, became the luxurious, elegant center of the leading commercial power of the civilized world. The Cretan fleets went out to every isle and harbor of the Mediterranean. Cretan ware was prized in Babylonia and Egypt. The bold little ships even broke through the gates of Hercules to the open ocean, coasting then northward to take the gold of Ireland. So I think that's where, what's it called? What's the passage at the opening of the Mediterranean into the Atlantic? In Spain, they have those big mountains there.
Gibraltar?
Yeah, like the Rock of Gibraltar, right? I think that's where, maybe there was, actually that's something interesting, but the gates of Hercules, they broke through the gates of Hercules to the open ocean. I think that must be that region. Coasting then northward to take the gold of Ireland and the tin of Cornwall, which is in the south of England, as well as going southward around the bulge of Senegal to remote Yorubaland and the distant marts of ivory, gold, and slaves. I guess meaning markets, where they sold ivory, gold, and slaves. From Leo. Okay. Yeah, what do you guys, any thoughts so far here about King Minos and his Cretan Empire expand? They were one of the first major seafaring cultures, There were many. What was it in they say the gosh, I'm drawing a blank now, but kind of just south of modern day Israel, there was a big seafaring culture as well, whose name I'm forgetting, so it's not going to make a good point. But but anyhow, yeah. What do you guys think about this story so far here with Minos and Crete? And maybe
So it
his
starts off whenever he gets the bull and promised to sacrifice it, correct? And then from then on, once he got was the son or something, right?
well, so yeah, you know, and then in the next paragraph it goes on to like kind of what's happening back. It's like, yeah, he's got this blessing, this sign from the gods, but like you say, yeah, he did not really fulfill his promise, his vow, you know, and so he's got the blessing, the abundance and prosperity. Obviously, his empire is expanding and things are going great. But yeah, we're about to find out what's happening back at home in the castle, or you know. So yeah, but at home, the queen had been inspired by Poseidon with an ungovernable passion for the bull. So this is the bull he kept that he was supposed to sacrifice. And she had prevailed upon her husband's artist craftsman, the peerless Daedalus, to frame for her a wooden cow that would deceive the bull, into which she eagerly entered. Oh, it's getting weird here. And the bull was deceived. She bore her monster, which in due time began to become a danger. And so Daedalus again was summoned, this time by the king, to construct a tremendous labyrinthine enclosure with blind passages in which to hide the thing away. So it's like, really, yeah, it's kind of creepy, this story, but it is really fascinating, you know, from a mythological, psychological perspective. It's like, yeah, you know, his queen went and basically cheated on him. But I think, you know, he already realizes he kind of has a part in the responsibility, because he brought this on himself. Like, he summoned this thing and then he didn't sacrifice it as he was supposed to. And then there's also maybe this it's like he can't quite bring himself to just kill this monster, but he hides it away in a labyrinth. So deceptive was the invention that Daedalus himself, when he had finished it, I guess the labyrinth, so deceptive that when he had finished it, he was scarcely able to find his way back to the entrance. Therein the Minotaur was settled, and he was fed thereafter on groups of living youths and maidens, carried as tribute from the conquered nations within the Cretan domain, from Ovid. So goodness, now they're bringing back prisoners of war, you know, young people to feed to this monster. But they've hidden the ugly Minotaur, the beast, away in a maze, hopefully, so he can't find his way out. Thus, according to the ancient legend, the primary fault was not the queen's, but the king's, and he could not really blame her, for he knew that he knew what he had done. He had converted a public event to personal gain, because it should have been like a ritual sacrificing of the bull, but he wanted to keep it for personal gain. Whereas the whole sense of his investiture as king had been that he was no longer a mere private person. The return of the bull should have symbolized his absolutely selfless submission to the functions of his role as king. The retaining of it represented, on the other hand, an impulse to egocentric self-aggrandizement. And so the king, quote unquote, by the grace of God, became the dangerous tyrant holdfast, out for himself. Just as the traditional rites of passage used to teach the individual to die to the past and be reborn to the future, so the great ceremonials of investiture divested him of his private character and clothed him in the mantle of his vocation, you know, his role, his job. And it's something interesting, because I lived in the Kingdom of Thailand for almost 7 years in all. Yeah, this king thing, like the true responsibility, I guess, of of real kings, which we don't have very many of these days anymore, but Thailand does. I mean, England sort of has a monarch, right, with the queen. I mean, she actually, I think she has more power than most people realize, but there's not very many monarchs left, right? But yeah, it's, you know, the ancient idea of like true kingship or monarchy, it was like, it came along with giving up a lot, actually, when you really study it and think about it. It's like, yeah, you don't have much privacy anymore. You don't have your own personality. They had to embody the archetype of the king, and it was like their duty, you know, to keep the kingdom thriving. They had to do these things. They had to perform the rituals correctly. They had to make the sacrifices. They had to, in one fashion or another, depending on their culture, their context, you know, but they had to serve the gods, their servants, if they're oriented properly. And when they didn't kind of fulfill their role in that hierarchy, that there's something above them, then they had serious problems befall them, like we have here with King Minos. Such was the ideal, whether the man was a craftsman or a king. By the sacrilege of the refusal of the right, however, the individual cut himself as a unit off from the larger unit of the whole community. And so the one was broken into the many, and these then battled each other, each out for himself, and could be governed only by force. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Interesting, huh? So we're kind of like review. Yeah, this is like his transformation from a benevolent king into a tyrant. He's kind of shattered the kingdom by not performing his role correctly.
He didn't do what he was supposed to, so he, you know, and people, I don't know if people were rebelling, but he was like, okay, I'm the king and I can do what I want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's going to be consequences, and he knows there's going to be consequences.
Mm-hmm.
With the Minotaur, it's like there's shame almost, like he's just trying to keep it hidden, that sort of thing. Maybe as a, you know, even for people, for me, I kind of take that as a, okay, you're supposed to be the king of your own body, but you do certain things, and you know, the Minotaur, you keep them down, but sooner or later they're going to come up, and there's not going to be pleasant, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's what I kind of get from reading that. You know, it's like a personal, you know, it's a metaphor for what, you know, Joseph Campbell's saying, you know, like it's your own personal demons, I guess, what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I read that.
Well, yeah, a while back, somewhere in there, it said, yeah, the object of both fear and shame, like you say, you know, like, yeah, he's made some mistake, some huge mistake, right?
Yeah,
but,
it's like the Minotaur inside of you is eating you up inside almost, you know, like it says here, they feed, you know, tribute, youths and maidens and that sort of thing. It's like, that's almost.
Yeah, they're doing human sacrifice, you guys.
Yeah, you're sacrificing your happiness, your joy, your whatever, right?
Yeah.
For whatever it is.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, that the legend. Yeah, that what's the word? The labyrinth, I think represents, yeah, like your inner world, kind of like you're saying. Yeah, it's like he's buried. He's ashamed. He doesn't quite have the bravery, the courage to just cut this problem off, you know. And therefore he still has to feed it in some sense, but he's hidden it away somewhere. Yeah, in
you know, so nobody can see it, right?
You can't navigate. You
have to feed it, because the more and more it's gonna, you know, the more.
But yeah, it's growing.
Go with it, the more problems you're gonna have.
Yeah.
And as you were mentioning, this is basically, or at least the book with 1,000 faces. We all have all these different, I guess, characteristics, personalities. But this is something like we're trying to bury so many of them deep down to where nobody can see them, nobody find them, hoping they don't find their way out.
Right. When you can't accept your shadow, if you will, you know, or those, the darker sides of yourself, the It's like, that's the thing, you know, we're human, and we all have the, like Jordan Peterson calls it kind of like sub-personalities. And I'm not really trying to say like anyone has multiple personality disorder, but I do think, you know, he formulates it that way from a psychological perspective. It's like you do kind of have different voices, like maybe not that you hear audibly, but like these different ideas, these different competing values, you know, that are almost in a sense having a conversation, you know, in your psyche when you're trying to make a decision or figure out what the best route is, you know, in life, right? You have that kind of devil and angel on your shoulder almost, in a sense, you know, the one who's maybe more out to just like to be the tyrant, you know, like just get ahead, just do whatever it takes to, like, you know, you got this, you can go do anything you want, you know, throw caution to the wind, morality doesn't matter, etc. And then there's the one that's like, well, I mean, yeah, you should be a champion, but also like, what's the best way you can do it, you know, to take everyone into account, or well, like in this case, like, yeah, to be the benevolent king, like, yeah, you're in charge, but you got to do it right so that the world around you, the community, doesn't suffer, you know. And you know, there's all these, Peterson calls them almost sub-personalities, I think. But in ancient myths and religions, like, those things are also sort of personified in the gods and the demons, right? Like those different voices that are, I mean, like passion, like anger, you know, that in ancient Rome and Greece, those were personified by like Ares or Mars, you know, certain gods, certain supernatural entities almost that can possess us. Okay, so let's dive back into Campbell here. The figure of the tyrant monster is known to the mythologies, folk traditions, legends, and even nightmares of the world, and his characteristics are everywhere essentially the same. He is the hoarder of the general benefit. He is the monster avid for the greedy rights of my and mine. The havoc wrought by him is described in mythology and fairy tale as being universal throughout his domain. This may be no more than his household, his own tortured psyche, or the lives that he blights with the touch of his friendship and assistance. Or it may amount to the extent of his civilization. So yeah, it's, again, that's what we're saying is, yeah, if you're only consumed by that personality or that energy, if you give into that and you keep feeding that beast in your labyrinth, you know, it can have, depending on your place in society, it's going to have a trickle-down effect on your household, your family, people around you, but even, yeah, to the extent of your civilization, if you're a king or if you're a leader of some kind. I think this is why we have a lot of problems on such a big mass scale, is because a lot of our leaders are harboring their own centaur, if you will, somewhere in a, you know, in their inner labyrinth, and you know, we can't always be blessed with well balanced, the most psychologically balanced leaders, but you know, that inner struggle and those our inner demons or dragons, if not dealt with, they have an impact on our community and on the world around us. So the inflated ego of the tyrant is a curse to himself and his world, no matter how his affairs may seem to prosper. Self-terrorized, fear-haunted, alert at every hand to meet and battle back the anticipated aggressions of his environment, which are primarily the reflections of the uncontrollable impulses to acquisition within himself. The giant of self-achieved independence is the world's messenger of disaster. Even though, in his mind, he may entertain himself with humane intentions. Wherever he sets his hand, there is a cry, if not from the housetops, then more miserably within every heart. A cry for the redeeming hero, the carrier of the shining blade, whose blow, whose touch, whose existence will liberate the land. And so again, it's like, you know, I'm not going to name any names, but I think this is a really fascinating archetype to have in mind when you look at what's going on in the world even today, right? And you've got to turn the mirror to yourself as well, because we are each guilty of doing this at times, everyone alive. But I do think it's an interesting metaphor that kind of shines a light on why we have problems, at the nation level, in every nation, or any big movements. It's like it's because of human corruption. It's because of our own mistakes, Rico?
I was just gonna say ego.
Yeah.
Like a person's ego, like for me, like just my personal, my ego got the best of me, and it wasn't always good, but like when I read that, it's like if you're gonna give in to your ego, the impulses, then there's no hope for you. You're just a beast kind of thing. You're not even, you're not. I'm not saying you're not a human being. You have emotions, you have everything else, but it's like if you're going to give in to those, you're not any more than a beast kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm mad.
Yeah. Well, and so this story,
self-haunted, aggression. At your environment, you're fighting, you're blaming everybody, but all you have to do is blame yourself. Like, all you have yourself is to blame. You made those choices, kind of thing, right?
Right. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's the hardest responsibility to take, but I really think like that's how we make the world a better place, is look at ourselves and what are the things I'm doing that are kind of feeding at least this negative pattern in my little kingdom, the world I see around me. It's all this story really illuminates like why I think that I talk about this I've increasingly been talking about this archetype of the king and the kingdom, and like I know some people are going to hear that and think like I'm egotistical or something, Cody thinks he's a king or whatever. It's like, but not from, and I do make the mistake, like I will, like I'm just going to be really honest, yes, I do make mistakes, so at times I know I fall into these patterns, but the archetype I'm trying to put on my pedestal at least is like not a king in the sense of like I own any of this.
Yourself.
Well, I'm king of myself, but how, like the importance of how my actions affect my domain, my family, my community around me, and everything in my sphere of influence. It's like, if I'm not making the right sacrifices, if I'm not quote unquote like performing the rituals, that are part of my duty, if I'm not doing my job correctly, then everything around me starts to it has this domino effect, and everyone and everything starts to suffer. So like that's when I say like wear your crown, it's like meaning get your damn mind straight, and remember that you have responsibility for yourself, your family, and your surroundings. And it's hard. It's very, very hard. You're gonna screw it up. You're not gonna perform perfectly, but always striving to kind of to develop that mindset of like, if you want the kingdom, quote unquote, to thrive, wherever that is, whatever that is for you, if you want your community, your neighborhood to thrive, it's like, well, you better be doing the things you need to do to help ensure that happens. It's like you are responsible to lead to make that happen. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, so, and here he quotes from, I think, T.S. Eliot. The wasteland. Here one can neither stand, nor lie, nor sit. There is not even silence in the mountains, but dry, sterile thunder without rain. There is not even solitude in the mountains, but red, sullen faces sneer and snarl from doors of mud-cracked houses. Here, this is one I've marked. So going back to Campbell's words, the hero is the man of self-achieved submission, Remember, I shared this with you guys, I think, privately on one of our calls recently. Self-achieved submission, but submission to what? That precisely is the riddle that today we have to ask ourselves, and that it is everywhere the primary virtue and historic deed of the hero to have solved. As Professor Arnold J. Toynbee indicates in his 6-volume study of the laws of the rise and disintegration of civilizations, schism in the soul, schism in the body social, will not be resolved by any scheme of return to the good old days or archaism, or by programs guaranteed to render an ideal projected futurism, or even by the most realistic, hard-headed work to weld together again the deteriorating elements. Only birth can conquer death, the birth not of the old thing again, but of something new. Within the soul, within the body social, there must be, if we are to experience long survival, a continuous recurrence of birth, to nullify the unremitting recurrences of death. For it is by means of our own victories, if we are not regenerated, that the work of Nemesis is wrought. Doom breaks from the shell of our very virtue. Peace then is a snare, war is a snare, change is a snare, permanence is a snare. When our day has come for the victory of death, death closes in. There is nothing we can do except be crucified and resurrected, dismembered totally, and then reborn. That's a very deep paragraph. What do you guys think about that?
What's it talking about by body social? Just talk about soul and then your body social. Just
well, yeah. So he's saying if kind of like what we've been building up with this conversation of the king or the kingdom archetype, if the leader is divided within the schism, you have this inner conflict of some sort, or you're just not balanced. You're driven by your lust or your ego, like Rico's saying, or you're becoming the tyrant. Then I think it does. It kind of mirrors, or it reflects, it projects into society at large at the same time. I mean, it's because each of us are divided in our soul, because our leaders are, imbalanced and maybe driven more by their greed and their concern for themselves rather than for the good of the group. Like, that's why we have these warring tribes in the bigger picture, like in society. That's why there's divisiveness and polarization of people in all these different camps. And that I think that's an interesting little highlight here in that paragraph. He said I think he says it twice, the schism in the soul, the schism in the body social. I think they reflect each other. It's like there's an inner conflict and there's an external conflict, like amongst groups of people at the same time. And there's some relation there underneath, if that makes sense. What do you think?
Yeah, that makes sense. It clears it out a little bit for me.
But yeah, at the start of that, he said the hero is the man of self-achieved submission. So there is you could say you're responsible for initiating yourself, for going through this process, and like you get to claim some of the glory from that. But it's also submission. Like I'm saying with the king archetype, it's like there's something above, like all the kings, all the lords. It might sound antiquated, I guess, to a lot of people these days, but it's often, even up till today, it's like there's always like in Thailand, there's almost a divine right of kings. Like that's why they are the king, whether that individual believes that or not. But I think, the proper way of orienting themselves, like if you're going to be a leader of that stature, like they have to remember they serve something higher, at least a greater purpose than themselves. They're not serving themselves, it's not just to fulfill their ego's desires. because if they do that, I mean, they can get away with it for a while, but eventually the kingdom collapses and suffers. You have this Minotaur that you're hiding away that's eating your children, you know, or it's either that, or yeah, like you serve something, a higher purpose, or the gods in King Minos's example, right? Like he failed. He was supposed to be serving Poseidon, you know, and Zeus, I guess, in his case. But because he got that hierarchy wrong, and he thought, like, what do they call that? When you equate yourself with the gods, it's
He thought he was equal with the gods, and that's why his wife bore that child from Zeus or whatever.
Yeah,
right? That's what.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's his.
Maniac. That's what I.
Yeah. There is a word for that. That again, my vocabulary switched off today. Sorry, guys, but you know, it's like this. I think it's the same thing that they said Achilles was guilty of. You know, like he directly challenged the gods. He was so possessed by like the Ares. Hubris. Thank you. That's the one. Yeah, exactly, Rico. Like, yeah, in this case, you know, his King Minos's hubris gave birth to a monster, right? Essentially, if that makes sense. Yeah, thank you, buddy. That's the one. Okay, so Theseus, the hero slayer of the Minotaur, entered Crete from without, from outside. And let me see if I tried to pull up an image of Theseus and the Minotaur as well. So, yeah, Theseus, the hero slayer of the Minotaur, entered Crete from without as the symbol and arm of the rising civilization of the Greeks. That was the new and living thing. So, you know, I guess the Greek Empire, I think at this point was rising, you know, was still coming up in the world. But it is possible also for the principle of regeneration to be sought and found within the very walls of the tyrant's empire itself. So again, it's like, yeah, like I said, it's not about rebirthing the old, but like finding something new. Like a new hero has to rise, a new leader maybe comes along, a new empire rises up, or the community in some way has to work together to formulate, you know, a new path forward. Not you can't go back to the old ways, and you can't, you know, have hope that there's going to be some futuristic savior, whether it's AI or who knows what, you know, you can't just sit around necessarily waiting for supernatural aid. It's like it does come in many of these myths and many of these stories, but the community has to team up and figure out, you know, a middle way, a new path forward, a new solution. So anyhow, Theseus, the hero slayer, the Minotaur, entered from outside, you know, and Greece kind of represents this new and living thing. But it is possible also for the principle of regeneration to be sought and found within the walls of the tyrant's kingdom. Professor Toynbee uses the terms detachment and transfiguration to describe the crisis by which the higher spiritual dimension is attained that makes possible the resumption of the work of creation. The first step, detachment or withdrawal, consists in a radical transfer of emphasis from the external to the internal world. And funny enough, you know, like I feel like that's kind of what we're going through today, in a sense, like on a societal scale, you know, like, yeah, drawing in, looking inward, doing the inner work. And I would say like that detachment, resonates with like a Buddhist perspective, especially, right? Like, yeah, kind of draw back from the fears and the desires. Don't fall into that Maya trap, as the Buddha would say. You know, and yeah, withdrawing, right, to your mountaintop temple, maybe, to go within. So yeah, the radical transfer of emphasis from the external to the internal world, from the macro, the big, to the microcosm, a retreat from the desperations of the wasteland to the peace of the everlasting realm that is within. Sounds like meditation. But this realm, as we know from psychoanalysis, is precisely the infantile unconscious. It is the realm that we enter in sleep. We carry it within ourselves forever. All the ogres and secret helpers of our nursery are there, all the magic of childhood, and more important, all the life potentialities that we have never managed to bring to adult realization. Those other portions of ourself are there, for such golden seeds do not die. If only a portion of that lost totality could be dredged up into the light of day, we should experience a marvelous expansion of our powers, a vivid renewal of life. We should tower in stature. Moreover, if we could dredge up something forgotten, not only by ourselves, but by our whole generation or our entire civilization, we should become indeed the boon bringer, the culture hero of the day, a personage of not only local, but world historical moment. In a word, the first work of the hero is to retreat from the world scene of secondary effects to those causal zones of the psyche where the difficulties really reside, and there to clarify the difficulties, eradicate them in his own case, i.e. to give battle to the nursery demons of his local culture, and break through to the undistorted, direct experience and assimilation of what Jung has called the archetypal images. This is the process known to Hindu and Buddhist philosophy as viveka, discrimination. And I wonder if you discrimination like as in discernment. So yeah, I mean that whole paragraph he's saying the hero is the one who steps back and looks at the bigger picture. Yeah, like withdraws and detaches from, like in the Buddhist tradition, they say like you need to detach from fear and from desire and just look, just like be the observer. Like what we've done, look at your own feeling. Like it's okay to experience those feelings, but you step back and you examine them like a third party almost, and analyze the world, and look at what are the dynamics going on, what are the patterns, and how are those things, like what is your responsibility, what's your share, in that. And I like where he it's like going within. It is a dangerous realm within, because we carry all those mythologies and those ogres and dreams of childhood still, but in that unknown world, that subconscious on your hero's journey, that lower half of the cycle, somewhere down there's gems, there's like gold to be mined, things to be uncovered, and as he said, it's if we could dredge up something forgotten, not only by ourselves, but by our whole generation or our entire civilization, we should become indeed the boon bringer, like bring back these concepts, ideas, values, principles, whatever. Like that's the reward at the bottom zenith of the hero's journey. Like it's dark and deep and scary, and it might look like a pit of hell or something, like you pass through a very dangerous transition, but somewhere in there you're going to find your gifts or some reward, some elixir, some magic to bring back to the community to renew the whole community, your community at least. What do you guys think?
That part where they're coming back and everything you're teaching, bringing it back to I guess a society. That's the completion of the circle for the hero's journey.
Yeah, that
correct?
Finally coming back to the starting point again.
Go through everything.
Yeah, and it's interesting how one of the stages is the like denying the return. Like a lot of times, the hero, the protagonist, kind of doesn't want to go back, and it's hard. It has its own road of trials and readjustment. Figuring out how to share whatever this transformational experience has been, what it's taught them, and figuring out how it's what you do as an entrepreneur. It's like, you look at your own life experience, your skills, the things you're good at, and it's a roller coaster trying to figure out, okay, so how can I detach from what the systems around me, the institutions, like they'll gladly give you a path to follow, but you step back and you wonder, well, is that the best thing I can do? Is that, it may serve me for now, but is that am I fulfilling my full potential by just going along with the general program that most people are following, by doing the easy thing, by taking the normal route? Or is it time to forge my own path through the deep dark depths of the jungle, go searching for my holy grail? What's my special thing that only I can do, that really fulfills me, that also serves everyone around me as best as possible? And there's no, school isn't going to give you a script for that. Church even isn't really going to give you a script for that in most cases. I would say, the economy isn't like, it's not going to have as many snares as some people think, but it's not going to serve that up to you on a silver platter. It's like, no, you got to go figure that out all on your own. That is the hero's journey, right? And figure out how to come back and serve the world with whatever that thing is that's inside you, with your skills, your uniqueness. Any thoughts from you there, Rico?
You kind of hit the nail on the head, Cody, with that. It's just what you just said there. It's like a spiritual war within yourself a little bit. I think that's what I was discussing today, like what was going on with me today. It's like the more I kind of, I've actually read ahead a little bit, the more I'm kind of getting into this, it's kind of bringing some things up, and it's almost like a spiritual war within yourself. Like the Minotaur is there, and I have to kill it to move on, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's, when I read this, it kind of everything's clicking, so that makes any sense. Like I said, it's a little bit over my head, but it is. I get what he's trying to say here.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's very deep. Yeah, very complex in a sense. I mean,
but if you think about it, it's not though. Like if you
it's actually pretty simple.
It's simple, but it's just. Like he makes you think. I think that's why I'm having problem. Like when you said, "What do you think?" It's hard for me. I don't know. It's not hard for me, but it's just like it's things that I need to deal with, and it's like it's hard for me to not talk about. But it's just like it's like a war within yourself almost. Even
absolutely.
That's what, for me. That's why I kind of look at this. And if you can get through this, you said nothing's going to be handed to you in a silver platter.
Right.
If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So,
right, exactly.
Like with me, a big part, and we've talked about this before, is my age. Like I kind of feel, what's the point now? That's maybe my Minotaur. Am I going to take a chance? I could do this. And there's fear there. I have the financial whereabout, but it's like, is this what you want to do? Is this something you really need to do? But it is, but it's like, it's very hard. It's very hard to do that. You're giving up security. I'm giving up my house. I'm giving up, my family's not going to be happy. After, you know, Cody knows a little bit of my past, you know, everything I've kind of built up, if that's what you want to call it, you know, I'm just going to tear it down again. So I'm going to have to deal with that, you know, my dad, you know, and it's like that stuff kind of wears on you. You know, that's where I'm kind of at when I read this kind of stuff. It's like the fears that you have, you know.
One of the things that somebody told me was I know kind of now with the crisis is kind of a little bit different scenario, but there's always going to be another job you get if things don't work out. Right? There's always.
Trust me, I've already been told that it's not about a job. Like I have skills. It's just like trading. I've done my whole, like that's why I started into it. I got out of that because that lifestyle was killing me. Like I said, Cody knows the whole backstory, you know, and part of me is, do I get back into that? Because I don't, like, that was a very hard time in my life, you know, and you know, and it's, you know, I made a lot of money, I blew a lot of money. I'm afraid, you know, if I start making money again, and that's not the be it and end all, you know, am I going to go back to being that type of person? I don't know. You know, that's kind of like, it's like an internal battle with me right now. So I don't know. Like I said, I keep saying I don't know because it's like it's very confusing for me right now. Right now, my life is very confusing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for all of us in a lot of ways, right? Because we're at a societal transition point. Yeah, who knows where it's going?
Yeah, you know, and it's not about per se. I'm just worried about what my family's going to think. That's my biggest concern, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I don't know. I feel like I'd be letting them down and this and that, but so you know, and part of me is like, well, I've been at this job for 15 years, you know, you're comfortable, you make, you know, and it's like that, it's like almost society's, the creed of the society you're going against what, you know, you're supposed to be. But I guess that's being a, you know, and it's kind of a little bit hard for me because it's kind of been drilled into my head last 15 years. So even my dad today, you know, oh, you got a good job. He keeps saying that, like, you know, I've been there for 15 freaking years. Like, it's like he's trying to, I think he kind of knows something's going on with me, but.
Well, yeah, I'm sure, like, as you embark on your hero's journey, like, other people start to see, some at first it's just like they can't quite put their finger on it, but something's different about Rico, you know?
Yeah,
like he's talking a little different
about business and stuff, and then the guys are like what, you know, they're kind of blue collar people, and it's just they don't understand. You know, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say there's a gleam in your eye, you know.
Yeah, you know, you're showing somebody
a little more intense or something.
Yeah, like they know my background, and they know I used to be a trader, and you know, and they're like, I was showing them the software, and they're like, well, what's the point of doing that? No, you're working here. And I'm like, kind of looking at them like, okay, are you kidding me? You know, like that's the kind of mentality I'm dealing with, and it's hard because it's everywhere. You know, Cindy's the only one that kind of supports me with this. So
well, and you know, like you as you go on your
you guys, but my own circle of friends and stuff, they're not very supportive of me doing this. So
as you start to go on that journey though of personal development or growth, you know, like as you're becoming something new, every stage of the way, like, you know, don't let this hold you back, but it is something you will grow more and more accustomed to. It's like as you're growing and changing, everyone around you has to like adjust to that new you, and you'll get a lot of pushback because there's a lot of people, like especially if you've been in some state of stagnancy, you know, stagnant in your life in some way, or just sitting pretty, you know, like happy where you are for a while. If you suddenly start to change, like some people are not gonna like that at all. You know, eventually they can adjust to it. Eventually they can
up there, down there, you know,
but,
in the middle.
But if you're rapidly changing, you're gonna get people like taking pot shots sometimes, you know, or at least questioning, what the hell are you doing? You know, this isn't the Rico I know. This isn't the Eric I remember.
I'm getting it, and it's, you know, part of me is yeah, it's very hard for me. Like I thought I could handle that, but it's very hard to be judged, and I don't know, and
It
that's kind
is.
of the battle I'm having, you know.
Yeah, I think that probably is. It's like, yeah, the inner battle is very, very difficult, but like it's almost like the peer pressure of, yeah, your family, your community, people around you. They will give you a lot of pushback, and that can be like the hardest part to push through, you know. But that's what you got to just. I guess, like, to go back to that last really lengthy paragraph, you know, he said it's like the hero sort of at first retreats, like withdraws from the world. And I guess I've done that the last couple of years, like looking back, like that's part of why I had to, you know, I was looking at moving back to California. I was with my family, like of origin, you know, like my parents and stuff, my sister, etc., like a lot, you know, and it was extremely hard because I got so much pushback because I was sharing these ideas about, like, yeah, who I am today. You know, they hadn't seen me in a few years, and like what I'm trying to build, and everyone's like, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, yeah, I was hoping to have everyone like all excited and want to help me out and encourage and maybe join the party, but I didn't get any of that. And so finally it was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna like go dark. I'm gonna disappear for a while, go into monk mode, you know, go back to Asia, like to a new place. And it was hard for a while because like we came to an island where we didn't have any social circle. But it also kind of like, so that was painful, but I think it also helped me. It served me in some way because I had so much, I like created that space for myself that I needed to just be myself. Yeah, without constantly battling other people's judgment. You know, it feels like judgment, but really it's like, yeah, addressing their concerns or their objections constantly. It's like I got plenty of my own, you know, so I didn't need to waste all my time and energy answering to other people. It's just like, but something deep down inside me just knew, even though there was objections, even though people were telling me I was fucking crazy. It's like something inside me fucking knew, like, you have a purpose, you know, like, and this dream, even though it was ambiguous at first, it's like, yeah, there's something that I was called to create, you know, and it's just barely starting to manifest now. It's taken much longer than I had hoped, but yeah, you'll fight a lot of pushback from other people, but you know, eventually, as long as you stay on your path and you don't turn back, you don't give up, you know, you'll break through that barrier. And I do, like most people, like the ones that aren't meant to be in your life will fall away, you know, and that's okay too. But the ones that truly love you, even if they're questioning, like, what the heck are you doing? You know, like, this is a totally different direction, a new direction for you. Like, eventually they'll be like, okay, I get it. You know, like, yeah, he's a man on a mission. You know, and yeah, the more you build yourself up, the more confidence and certainty you develop over time. Yeah, the more other people will kind of come along with you.
See, I didn't realize how much pushback, even just from friends. You bring up your ideas too, and they don't think it's a great idea, or they're perfectly content, you know, working every day 9 to 5 or whatever they are working. It's just like they have no desire to really grow and do something beyond that for, I guess, to better their family. And you know, one thing that I keep looking at is basically why I'm wanting to do it. Just I'm wanting to have more time with my son, with my wife. I want to be able to just, I guess, give them a better life in general. And I think that's trying to, I guess, at first I kept getting really distracted, and I stopped looking at it. But the more I started like focusing on it, seeing where we were at, where I want to go, and just, especially with everything going on now, it's kind of help I guess motivate me to go a little bit further.
It's good, yeah.
But there is a lot of pushback by friends and family, though. I'm not near at the same location as you are, Rico, but just where I'm at, talking to them, it's just it's crazy.
Well, like I said, I think they're scared. I don't know. Maybe it's their own fear. I don't know exactly. Like, my dad's pretty old school. Like my past when I was younger, I should be retired by now, kind of thing. I had that, I just blew it all. I think he's scared, because he bailed me out. I don't know. Maybe it's his own fear. It's kind of getting on me, and I'm supposed to be the good Italian son, listen to your father. But it's kind of like, I don't know. It's kind of eating away at me. I feel like I'm going to let him down. That's kind of my biggest battle. And I know I have skills. Like I know I can make money. It's just, I feel like I'm disappointing him if I do this. That's basically where I'm at.
Well, one thought about, especially parents. I mean, I do think like parents, and in my case, grandparents in the past, like those are like they do want the best for us, but it often will manifest as worry or doubt, and so I think in my past success, like my last little business empire I built, which then I let fall to pieces because I was not doing my job as a benevolent king correctly, but like I saw a lot of success in my first 7 to 8 years as going nomad, which sounds maybe strange, but it's like the further I went, like the more mental space I had to experiment with new things, new ideas, and there was a ton of failure along the way, but something like, I don't know, maybe that's a weird little side thought, but like the further I went from home, the more successful I became. And I just found the things that fit me, rather than being shaped so much or I don't even want to say held back, but you know what I mean, like sort of held back by people's ideas around me who I grew up with, like their conception of what they thought I should be, or just their doubts and stuff. And again, it's like I think they all have my best interest at heart. They want to see me succeed, But sometimes it's like they're looking out so much for you that like they don't see what you see, So depending on your situation, you may need to get some distance or some space so that
that's what I was talking about, this motor home, and we bought this house to fix up and flip, like there's a bunch of stuff there. It's just, I don't know, maybe my dad kind of triggered me today just with some of this stuff, and it's, I don't know.
But the other side though, Rico, is like, we need that too. And I think especially our fathers, for many of us, I do think especially our fathers, like give the most, but you need the challenge too. It's like, sometimes you need the space to get away from other people's opinions or doubts or whatever, but it's also it's not the worst thing because they will challenge you too, and it's like, it may be on some level, he's also saying like, are you sure you want this? Like, how much do you want this? Are you?
He's afraid of me quitting because I'm 49. He's afraid, if this doesn't work, whatever, right? Then I'm screwed. And because no one's going to hire a 49 and blah, blah, blah. Like he's got that kind of mentality, right? He's one of those guys, he was at Safeway since he was 16 years old and he retired at 65. He's one of those guys, right?
Yeah.
And, like he's one of like, you got a job, blah, 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 right? So, it's hard because it's just been instilled in me, even when I was, even when I had, not a blue collar job, but it was kind of instilled in me, you don't quit, you just keep, and it's hard. Even my friends that I work with now, it's, I don't get much support at all, and I showed them this software and they're like, oh yeah, cool, send it to me. And so I send it to them and you don't hear a word, hey, give me your feedback or whatever. I'll show you how to do it. Or, I don't have, it's like, okay, it's like, they don't care because they're all, I guess everybody's in their own mind, they got their own views and everything else. I totally understand that. And it's, I don't know.
Well, another thing, I think it was my wife and I did a training with Tony Robbins and Russell Brunson and a bunch of folks last week. And I think it was Tony Robbins who has this concept of like, there are toxic people, you know, in your life that maybe want to see you fail. That maybe, I mean, actually, the more you grow, the more successful you become, the more visible you are. Like you're gonna have haters, and actually, another side of that is like those people will be drawn to you too, which is difficult to deal with and learn how to cope with that. But that's actually also, it's like they're attracted to you too. It's like they may be bringing some shit, you know, to deal with. But they're like, if they're following you and watching you and criticizing you, like something in them is actually attracted to you, you know. Otherwise, like they're not apathetic to you, but they have their own junk in their brain that they think they're trying to fix you, but it's really their conversation in their own head. But anyhow, yeah, there are toxic people who kind of want to, maybe they don't want you to grow. They like you the way you are, and they want you to just stick around for, you know, beers every night or watching a football game or something and not expand too much more because it makes them uncomfortable. And actually, you know, that can be friends and family too. I don't want to say that, but there's like a little group of toxic people, and it takes some discernment, some, what was it, discrimination, as he just wrapped up that last paragraph. You know, don't be too quick to judge, but like, yeah, there are some people who maybe you need to distance yourself from or let go of. But then the vast majority of people are friends and family, and it's like, you know, they might exhibit that kind of behavior from time to time. It might feel like judgment or criticism, but I also think like a lot of time they really do want what's best for you. They don't want you to fail. Their doubts and hang-ups are going to be louder than yours, and so yeah, like you sometimes need to distance yourself to just get away from that. Like I was saying earlier, it's like I have enough of my own doubts that I'm working on. I don't need to be constantly addressing everyone else's doubts, you know.
Yeah.
And objections.
But
it's like, yeah,
it's my dad's fear. I get it. Like I'm not, you know, and it's, yeah. So like we can keep talking about it, but that's where I'm kind of at today. You know, last couple bit, you know, and it's like you said, the haters. It's like, you know, I posted 2 little YouTube videos. I get this email from this guy. This is bullshit, and blah, blah. I'm like, dude, I showed you. How can I like, you know? He just doesn't. I don't know, because he can't do it. I guess I don't know. It's, you know. And back when we were doing our training, Cody, you know, I was posting in groups and stuff. It was just, it's insane, the hate and viral, and it's just, I don't know. It's maybe it's what our society's come to, I guess, but it's
yeah, I think it is. It's getting harder and harder, but you know, keep pushing through. I mean, but so to wrap up that concept, I want to share, like these. Tony Robbins says there's kind of these 3 groups. It's like there's the people you grow with, which is, it's like our mastermind. It's our community. That's what I'm trying to build. You know, it's a space specifically for people who are like that. They've decided, okay, yes, I'm going to go on this journey. You know, and I know it's going to be hard as hell. And yeah, we all have those people on the outskirts that are challenging, critiquing, judging us, and yeah, maybe holding us back. But at least like you have a space where you can come, where you know other people are also on the journey. You know, they're also facing those hardships and doing everything they can, trying to find growth, you know, and expansion in whatever form. So there's people you grow with, and that's often not the same group as like friends and family. So, you know, yeah, there's a thin line you kind of have to walk, you know, where it's like maybe you don't share so much with it. It's like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with having a beer and watching the game, you know, with an old friend or with your dad or whatever, you know. But also, yeah, maybe they're not the ones to always have those growth conversations with, if they're still in a place where that makes them uncomfortable, you know, because yeah, you're going off on a unique path all on your own, and a lot of people will be like, well, hold on, man, like what are you doing trumping off in the darkness, you know, by yourself, hacking through the jungle? What on earth are you doing? But you know, so yeah, it's like there's the group who you don't need to kick them out of your life. Friends and family, they're there for a reason, and they're great, But yeah, maybe you just don't get as deep with them because they're just not on that same path at this point, at least, right? Not yet, and they don't quite see what you see. But there is a group who are the people who you grow with, who are on a similar path, and that's why I love doing these mastermind groups. That's why I'm trying to build a community with the Hero Foundry, and yeah, it's like sometimes I find those people in my local surroundings. It's rare, but yeah, hold on to them when you do. And over time, yeah, do practice some discrimination. I know they tell us we shouldn't, but not based on any external features of people, but just on if someone is truly toxic, like they're out there, some people just want to undermine you, and they're not good for you. So yeah, if they're like intentional, not just questioning, but like if all they do is try to knock you down and keep you down, pull you down like the bucket of crabs, yeah, maybe those are people who you shouldn't be spending time with. But
one of the similar situations I had, or not maybe similar, but whenever I was talking to my wife and I was going to go to the Philippines to meet her, well, I was going to quit my job and just up and leave. And that's what I did, but I didn't have anything for making money or anything like that. But everybody that I talked to, family, friends, thought that was the stupidest I did ever.
Well, and like I say, it's like you need that challenge to a degree too, right? You need to have your ideas challenged, your vision challenged to a degree, because yeah, like you need some resistance to test, like, yeah, how committed to it are you? Like if people question or criticize and it doesn't take very much for you to give up, then okay, then that probably wasn't your true calling. You didn't feel it enough to chase after it. So that's why it's like, yeah, you need encouragement, and that's like you find the people who are also on a growth path, on a like they're on some similar journey as you, and you share, maybe a lot with them. Share your struggles, share your wins, share just like we are,
Yeah.
But maybe most people who you grew up with and your family, etc. It's like, I mean, yeah, you share little updates here and there, but maybe they're just not ready to get too deep into it. But like, but yeah, you're gonna have those people. You need encouragement from a group like what we have, and from the friends that do have that common bond, that are trying to build something or improve themselves. But you need the challenge also. It's like I realized I needed my dad to challenge me at certain points in the past. When he questioned like, "What the hell am I doing?" I needed that. I needed some pushback from mentors who, like, they weren't just like, "Oh yeah, you're brilliant," like, "Go do it. I'm sure everything will be fine." But instead they were like, "Well, that's interesting, but have you considered this?" Or like, "Yeah, do you realize it's going to be harder than you think to achieve X, Y, or Z?" Or, like you need the challenge too. Yeah. To kind of test your mettle for like how committed you are, how well developed your vision actually may be or not. I hope that makes sense. It's like, yeah, we need encouragement and support, and like a coach, which comes in many forms from certain friends or colleagues, but also the challenger, the one who's like testing you, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you guys have any final thoughts, I think that's probably for today. That's a good place for us to kind of wrap it up. And I like what direction that went at the end. Yeah, it's cool to reflect on how it applies more directly to our entrepreneurial path, right? So yeah, I appreciate you guys sharing. Any more thoughts before we start to wind things down?
No, I'm good.
I'm good.
Cool. Well, yeah, I really appreciate you guys. Here, since I have them up, let's have one last look at Theseus slashing the Minotaur's throat.
We do have a picture like that in the book. It's a few pages past where we're at.
Yeah.
And it's
That's
it's
why I
not
pulled
as
that one up.
big of a picture. It's like a more centralized picture, and it's kind of a little different. Like that
the
vase
one I
you showed
have-
earlier, we have that.
This is the
I could
one.
do
Yeah.
this, I guess, but it's hard.
Yeah,
I
that's
have
it.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
So anyone who's watching in, following along, the next episode we will delve further into the story of the Minotaur, which I do think it's really fascinating. And hopefully next time we catch up, you two guys, we can. It doesn't matter how long it takes us to get through this stuff because it just provokes a lot of fascinating conversation, right? But yeah, maybe the next time we might wrap up the Minotaur story. But yeah, thank you, Rico. Thank you, Eric. Thank you guys both so much. I really, really love having these meetings, and I appreciate your bringing your perspective and just reflecting on these things. It's fun. So thank you both.
It was good, man.
Yeah, I agree, man. I appreciate it.
It's good to get it off your chest a little bit. So,
Yeah.
I know the wife's starting to get sick of it.
All right, brothers. Well, hey, thanks for staying up with me.